Okay, good day, eh? This model's been sitting in this box for 2 years. Not because I don't have time, and not because I don't love it, but because the second I open it, it stops being perfect. That fear has a name, and by the end of this video, you're going to recognize it in your own pile of shame. So let's talk about why this hobby quietly messes with our heads, and what to actually do about it. Beauty. If this sounds familiar, hit like, subscribe, and ring that little bell. It generally helps the channel more than you'd think. Hey everyone, welcome back to C7 Hobbies, eh? I'm Colossal Meltdown, where we dig into the psychology behind why this hobby gets inside our heads, for better or for worse. Today, we're tackling two things that quietly ruins hobby time more than bad glue: unrealistic expectations and flat-out hobby intimidation. Let's tame this, which is part of the Collection Beast playlist. Here's something almost every hobbyist has lived through. You buy an army, you picture the finished force, every model painted, every base finished, display cabinet worthy. You're going to have games every weekend, eh? You're finally going to become that painter. And then reality shows up. Life gets busy. Painting takes longer than you thought. You make mistakes. The army grows faster than it gets painted. And suddenly, the dream and the reality don't match. And that's exactly where the frustration starts. Psychologists call this an expectation gap. The bigger the gap between what we expect and what actually happens, the more disappointment we feel. Here's the important part. The disappointment isn't coming from the hobby. It's coming from the distance between expectation and reality. Think about it. Nobody expects to shred like a rock star after one guitar lesson. Nobody expects to run a marathon the day after buying running shoes, eh? And yet, somehow we expect to paint like someone with 15 years of experience on our third miniature ever. That's a pretty rough deal to make with yourself. That's like buying a frying pan and wondering why Gordon Ramsay hasn't called. Relax, bud. You've made back bacon twice. And here's the sneaky part. This expectation gap doesn't just make you disappointed. Left alone long enough, it turns into something worse. It turns into intimidation. Let's talk about hobby intimidation. This isn't just being a little nervous before you pick up a brush. It's when your brain flat out convinces you, I'm not good enough to even start. You buy that amazing centerpiece miniature, and then you never build it. Never paint it. It sits in the box. Protected. Safe. Perfect. Why? Because the moment you start, it might stop being perfect. This happens because uncertainty creates anxiety, and your brain tries to protect you from disappointment. Ironically, it protects you from preventing any progress at all. This has happened to me with this guy. 30 years. That's why unopened boxes feel strangely comforting. As long as it's still in the box, it still has unlimited potential. The moment paint touches it, reality begins. My pile of shame has models that have been waiting for the right moment so long, they're basically eligible for retirement benefits, eh? One of them actually qualifies for government pension at this point. Eesh. And it's not just centerpiece models. It's the return to the hobby table after a long break. It's posting your work online for the first time. It's picking up an airbrush after watching one too many tutorial videos from someone who clearly sold their soul at a crosswords for that level of skill, eh? Somewhere out there, a guy is doing freehand lettering on a shoulder pad the size of a Tic Tac, and the rest of us are just trying to keep the black base coat inside the lines. That's not a skill gap. That's witchcraft. Don't compare yourself to witchcraft. So what do we actually do about all this? Here's what psychologists often recommend when goals start feeling overwhelming. Make your expectations process-based instead of outcome-based. Instead of saying, I'm going to paint an amazing army, try, I'm going to paint for 30 minutes. Notice the difference? One depends on perfection, the other just depends on showing up. Another tool is cognitive reframing. Instead of thinking, this miniature has to be my best, try asking, what is this miniature teaching me? Every model becomes practice. Every mistake becomes information, and progress replaces pressure. And redefine what success actually looks like for you. Success doesn't have to mean golden demon quality. Success might mean I finished something. I enjoyed painting. I learned one new technique. I had fun. And that still counts. Full stop. Sometimes success just means you didn't glue your fingers together today. And that's always a good day, eh? We're setting achievable goals here, folks. Confidence rarely shows up before you take action. It shows up after repeated action. A lot of people wait to feel confident before they start. Psychology suggests the opposite is true. Action builds confidence, not the other way around. Paint one miniature, and then another, and then another. Tiny wins add up. Your brain starts collecting evidence. I can actually do this, eh? Not because somebody told you, because you provided yourself. Beauty. Take photos. Compare your current miniature to your older work, not somebody else's. Your only real competition is yesterday's version of you. And if yesterday's version of you primed a model with a rattle can indoors and painted the ceiling too, well, you've got nowhere to go but up. One of my favorite reminders, every incredible painter once painted their very first miniature. Every single one, eh? Nobody skipped beginner's mode. If there's one thing I want you to walk away with today, it's this. A hobby isn't asking you to be perfect. Only your expectations are. Manage those expectations and painting becomes enjoyable again. Buying becomes more intentional. Collections become manageable. Intimidation slowly loses its grip. The goal isn't becoming the best painter on the internet. The goal is building a hobby that makes your life better. And that's a very different finish line. And honestly, it's one worth chasing. If today's episode sounded a little too familiar, don't worry, eh? You're not the only hobbyist who's ever started at a brand new model thinking, well, I don't want to ruin this. We've all been there, eh? So tell me in the comments, what's the most intimidating miniature you own that you still haven't painted, eh? I genuinely want to hear your stories. If this episode took a little pressure off your shoulders, hit like, subscribe, and send it to another hobbyist who needs to hear that perfection isn't the goal. Until next time, keep your paints wet, keep your expectations realistic, and remember, plastic miniatures are supposed to reduce stress, not become the reason you need therapy. Now go forth, be awesome, and paint for the paint gods.